There are 22 hidden traps that can turn a landlord's property sale into an expensive nightmare, and I've seen it happen while helping sell hundreds of tenant-occupied units. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to watch out for so you can protect your profit and skip the headaches that catch most landlords off guard. So number one is trying to hide the sale from tenants. I know some landlords think that keeping the sale a secret will avoid drama. It's the opposite. There's no way to hide it. A well-marketed property will be discovered by the renters. And if the tenants discover the listing on their own, especially if the landlord hasn't said anything or worse, lied about it, they start wondering what else you're not telling the truth about. Be upfront and be honest. Number two, letting unannounced people onto the property. No drop-bys. No, I was just driving by. No random investors, no looky-loos. Everything must be scheduled with proper notice to the renters. I personally, when listing a property, will require that the buyers submit an offer before they're ever able to walk the property. And if an investor won't do that, they're not a real investor. Number three, skipping the fine print in listing and sales agreements. Landlords need to know what they're signing. How long is the listing agreement? What is the commission that's going to be paid when the property is successfully sold? How do you cancel if the agent isn't performing? I once reviewed a listing contract from a major multifamily broker that allowed the agent to keep half of the buyer's deposit if the buyer removed all contingencies and the deposit went hard. That money belongs to the landlord, not the agent. On the sales agreement side, a landlord once called me because his agent locked him into a deal requiring him to remove a tenant before the property closed. This property was under strict rent control. His only option was to pay the tenant tens of thousands of dollars to move out, and he had been trying to sell the property without trying to do that. Use AI as a tool, so go to ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and load up those agreements into there to summarize the contract and use more than one to double check and see if there's any gotchas in these agreements. Number four is DIY repairs to save money on a rental property. And I'm talking before the property sells, and I'm talking when the property's under contract. So small DIY fixes and big DIY fixes almost always fail inspection. If you do it yourself, the tenant's gonna complain about it as well, and let the buyer know that you did it yourself. You can offer a repair credit instead. That keeps the liability low, and it gives buyers flexibility to use who they want, and it becomes their problem if something goes wrong. Number five is allowing the buyer's contractor in before closing. So they can be there for due diligence, but you're not letting them do any work. Until the property closes, you own the liability. So no contractors doing a quick job here or there or starting demo over here. After closing, the buyer can bring in anyone they want and do whatever the heck they want. It's their problem and insurance if something goes wrong. Number six, not taking professional exterior and interior photos. When the property is for sale, having professional exterior and interior photos, absolutely mandatory. If the inside's ugly and you're worried about it affecting property value, the buyer needs to know that anyway. You don't want it to be a surprise when they walk through. The ugliest properties, like I'm dealing with it right now, there's a hoarder in a unit. I've taken pictures of that and I'm gonna show it to the agent and the buyers before they submit, but they need to understand what they're getting themselves into before the walkthrough. And if you're gonna do some touch up with photos, don't go crazy. If the property's unrecognizable in person, like a glamour shot from the old days, or a dating profile where the buyer realizes that it doesn't look anything like the pictures, not gonna get a second date or move beyond that. Number seven is using inaccurate rent or expense numbers in the offering memorandum, which will go out to investors, in the MLS listing, LoopNet and Crexy, all the places where the listing is gonna be seen. Everything must reflect actual rent and expenses. Overstated income doesn't help anybody. If that's discovered in escrow, it's going to give buyers a legitimate excuse to renegotiate. So use the actual numbers, and then you can show pro forma market rents in a separate area in the offering memorandum. Number eight's a big one, and that is letting the buyer talk to the renters. Do not do that. This can blow up a deal and leave you with major headaches. There was one flipper I know who promised the tenant $10,000 to move out. Well, he backed out of the deal. Now it's up to the landlord to either front that money or find somebody else willing to pay $10,000 to that renter to move out. The landlord has to deal with the mess, so keep all communication through the landlord or the listing agent. That's it, period. No direct discussion with the renters. Number 9, allowing outrageously long due diligence periods. Due diligence includes things like inspections and appraisal, reviewing rental agreements, reviewing the books, finding insurance, other odds and ends. For single-family homes, condos, and small buildings that are tenant-occupied, 15 days is probably about the max you're gonna wanna do. For larger buildings, you can give more time, 30 days. Anything beyond that, there's gotta be a good reason for it. So if a buyer's asking for a long due diligence period, it's a sign the buyer maybe isn't all that qualified, maybe doesn't know what they're doing, or most likely, they're trying to flip that deal before they buy it. So they're not your real buyer, they wanna march a bunch of people through and flip that contract to someone else. Get those contingencies removed so the deposit goes hard. And from there, if the deal doesn't close, then you get a pile of cash. And you won't split it like we talked about that one agent who snuck that into the listing agreement. Number 10, allowing unlimited or spread out inspections. Inspections really can happen all on the same day, and the appraisal can happen on the same day. Repeat visits are just gonna frustrate the tenants. And again, it may mean the buyer's bringing multiple investors through trying to flip that contract. These people aren't real inspectors, they're potential buyers. So during negotiations, one of the things that we do is we add into the deal in writing that all the inspections and appraisals have to happen in the same day. And yes, this can be done even for bigger buildings. Number 11 is ignoring health and safety repairs during escrow. Health and safety repairs must be completed until the moment you are no longer the owner of the property, landlords. I had a landlord who was evicting a non-paying tenant in a mountain cabin. The water heater died just as the first winter storm was rolling in. He still had to send a plumber to fix that water heater because it's a health and safety issue. Do not try to avoid fixing health and safety items. Number 12 is a big one, and most agents who don't specialize in selling rental properties don't know. That is, not watching out for the buyer's retrade. Well, what's a retrade? A retrade is when the buyer tries to renegotiate the price, and usually it's after due diligence. So it could be a big price reduction, it could be a big credit, or both. Sometimes it's fair. Sometimes they found things in the due diligence that were a big deal that nobody knew about. A lot of times it's not. So some buyers promise whatever it takes to get the property into escrow, and their plan the whole time is to renegotiate it. So it's up to a strong listing agent who knows about this and is going to cut this off at the pass. So they're going to vet the buyer and buyer's agent and let them know that retrading means that the buyer and agent are out. Number 13 is making side agreements outside of escrow or title. Everything must go through the escrow or title process. No side deals, no handshake promises, no rent credit off to the side, etc. There is one rare exception. Sometimes a lender won't allow certain credits, and that even applies to security deposits and rent prorations. For example, I had this recently happen to an FHA buyer who is buying a duplex to move into. The rent proration and security deposit credit were too high. So the buyer and the seller documented everything separately before closing, including the exact security deposit amount, the rent proration amount, where the funds are going, timelines to get those funds. They negotiated all of that and safely did that outside of escrow. But other than that, I don't recommend doing it. Number 14, using friends or family as a listing agent. This is business. Selling a tenant-occupied property requires a very specific set of skills. Liam Neeson said it best in Taken.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
Selling a tenant-occupied condo or house is different from selling a normal condo or house. That's also different from selling a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And there's also a different skill set that's required for larger buildings. A 22 unit I just closed in Costa Mesa. It's important to understand that your agent needs the unique skills to navigate this special process to make sure that headaches are minimized and you get the most money in your pocket. It is not time to give the deal to your cousins, uncles, aunts, friend who just got their license. Not gonna save you any time or money. Number 15, ignoring tenants' rights, RESPECT. Your agent must know the local rental laws, respect schedules, respect privacy. Unhappy tenants can kill a deal faster than a bunch of moldy bathrooms. Number 16, changing contract terms after signing. Look, there will be changes that come up, but it needs to be done the proper way. Both sides must agree. Any change must be documented in writing and then also go to the escrow or title officer. So no verbal agreements, no text messages to each other. This is going to apply to price changes, credits, changes in dates for contingency removal or closing, buyer assignments, etc. Everything in writing, do it the right way. Number 17, failing to disclose property issues. I got 3 words for you. They're very important. Disclose, disclose, disclose. And remember, if you don't disclose something, your tenants probably will. Number 18 is failing to disclose tenant details and deposits. Look, buyers need accurate rent rolls, security deposits, and leases and lease terms. If your documentation is sloppy, which happens, or you don't have copies, that's very common when a property is inherited, the tenant estoppel certificate can save the day. That'll be your backup for these items, but make sure it is fully disclosed and documented. Number 19 happens way too often, even with experienced agents, not checking the chain of title. So some owners think they can legally sell a property when they can't, especially for inherited or properties that have been held a long time. Check title. I once spoke to a seller who thought he owned the whole building, and it turns out he only owned 1/8, and probate had never been completed. He had a bunch of signatures to get. So he was one seller, but there are a whole bunch of others who need to be brought into the deal to make it happen. Sometimes it's a quick fix. Sometimes you're looking at major legal work, finding a distant relative to sign something. You can get into quiet title or partition actions. Handle this before listing the property. You don't want to have an amazing deal locked up in escrow and find out you can't sell it. Number 20 is relying on the property manager to sell the property. Property managers lease and maintain. Selling requires a different skill set. Make sure you run the property management agreement that you have through AI. Load that PDF up into AI so that you can review it and see what cancellation looks like in case the buyer's not interested in keeping the property manager. And also check to see if they snuck in a clause where the property manager has a first right of refusal to sell the building for you. You want the choice of who sells your tenant-occupied property. Heads up that once a property manager knows they're losing the account, that some property managers will just get a little slower and a little less cooperative on items. So you have to make sure you have a listing agent who's ready to step in, understands how to help with paperwork and keep things moving. Ooh, 21, a big one. Picking a buyer without creating competition. In the military, they say 1 is none and 2 is 1. If you only have one offer, if you only have one buyer, that buyer has all the leverage, and savvy investors will take advantage of the situation and try to grind you, try to do the retrade. You need to make sure the property is priced and marketed so that there are multiple strong offers on the property. Remember, 1 is none, 2 is 1, and I guess 3 is 2. I don't know. Keep going. As many offers as you can. Number 22, and the last one is, again, something that must be done before the property is listed. Not preparing for capital gains tax is a massive mistake. Look, it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing to have appreciation, but you're going to deal with capital gains tax. There's going to be California state tax. There's going to be depreciation recapture. Even if you didn't take depreciation, you still have to recapture depreciation. So you need to come up with a plan. Should you do the 1031 exchange, use an opportunity zone for the gain, do loss harvesting? I'm going to have more content on that. I have an exciting opportunity there. Or are you just going to cash out? What does your tax bill look like? You need to know your tax strategy before you list the property. So there's 22 traps landlords need to avoid when selling a rental property, but that's not all that you need to know. In order to protect your profit and avoid the biggest mistakes, make sure you check out this next video right here.